Okay, so tonight it's all about understanding the ADHD brain. So we often talk about, um, the behaviors and the challenges and everything that we see and the struggles. But we don't often talk about, but why do we see it on a brain level? So actually what's happening inside of your child's brain. And if you're an adult with an ADHD as well, what's happening inside of your brain. So the goal tonight is to basically give you a better understanding of what's happening inside of the brain, but why do we then see the challenges that children and adults and people with ADHD does have? So, pardon me. So there's the question. I want to ask you something. Um, let me just ask quickly, Karen. Let's just do a quick thing here. Is there lots of parents? Is it parents with ADHD kids or here? Is it teachers? The audience? Just want to get an idea. If you can type in quickly, are you a parent or are you struggling yourself with ADHD? Are you a teacher?
Okay, parent. Just waiting. Teacher,
Yeah.
Natasha, Candice, social
Thumbs up,
worker.
thumbs up. Okay.
Social worker. Teacher and founder of ADHD Venture. Oh, Kafilwe. Ronald is a parent. Marika is a parent. And for herself, Marizette,
Okay.
herself as well. I also laugh. We both ADHD, so welcome. Okay,
Yeah.
Tahiya's team is parents and myself not struggling with ADHD. It's my superpower, yes.
Yes.
Inanda is a play therapist and a parent. Liesel is a parent. Zadel is a parent and a teacher. We love it
Okay,
when teachers
wonderful.
comes. We love it.
Yes. Yeah. Remember, it takes a village. Ne?
Yes.
It takes a village. We're never ever alone. Okay,
Oh,
so
Delian.
let me ask
Yeah.
you. Hi?
Now I see Delian Lawrence is here. She always attends our stuff. Welcome,
Yeah.
Delian, the parent and the
All right.
teacher.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So here's
Great.
my question. Can you can your child play Minecraft or build Lego or watch their favorite movie and be laser focused for 2 hours straight, but they can't sit still for 10 minutes to do their homework without a fight breaking out? Is it happening? Do you guys see it? You can someone give a thumbs up, a thumbs up there. Yeah, let me
Yes.
see. There's all the thumbs coming up. Karen will also know. She's a mom. I'll introduce ourselves just now, but she's also a mom, so she will relate to all the fights and everything that's happening. But yes, that's what we see. They can do that, but they can't do homework. And that's what tonight's all about. I want to explain to you why is it happening. So there's
Yes.
actually a reason why we see it. So the goal for tonight is I've got three things. So the one is I want you to actually finally understand what's actually happening inside of your child's brain. And then I want to give you parenting advice that will work for for you tonight. Um, and because sometimes we get parenting advice, but it doesn't always work for you because we can have kids with ADHD. All of them have got the same diagnosis, but it looks different. So I want to give you a parenting advice that can help for you. And I want to give you three strategies that you can tonight when you leave. You've got three strategies that you can go and try and do at home. And it's not miracle strategies, and it's not going to be like do it tonight and tomorrow it's like 1st of September, everything it's beautiful flowers and bees and all that stuff. Unfortunately, we're working here with the ADHD brain. We're working with kids, and we work with you as a parent and your own frustrations. So we have to we have to keep everything in place. So, just a little bit about Karen and myself. So, we are sisters by blood. We've got the same parents. So, Karen is a mother of three boys. Two of them has got, well, I actually want to say all of them
Yeah.
has got ADHD. But The eldest one is Henry. He's also on the he's a Asperger. He's the reason this business started 18 years ago. Karen was looking for support for Henry. Um, More on a deeper level where we look at brain skills and actually what Henry would needed. He struggled a lot with sensory processing challenges, very impulsive, you know, attention as well. And today we are very happy to say that Henry is a businessman now. He's got his own business. He's Bloemfontein's brownie man. He bakes his own brownies. He sends them off all over South Africa, and he actually also the 1st of the month opened his first coffee shop. So that is Henry. He's 26 years old. That's the reason why this business started, because it's like the older the audience here will know Dirty Dancing, the movie. Nobody puts baby in the corner, ne? So nobody put Henry in the corner, and there was his parents were very proactive and looked for something and supported him, and that's where he is today. I'm a registered nurse and I've only got one daughter, but she's a little bit OCD, at the same as her mom, and she's a very perfectionist. And because of that, she had her own struggles and challenges at school. Hers is more emotional things because she actually put a lot of stress on herself to be perfect. We know that with the girls. And together, Karen and I both, we are certified ADHD coaches, but we also do teacher training. So for the teachers on here, we are a SACE accredited provider. So we've got accredited teacher trainings available that we can prevent at your school. And then we are the principals and the owners of BioLink Brain Training in South Africa. So we are now 18 years old. In October, it will be 18 years old. And we've got about 43 centers across South Africa with owners with the same passion as ours, and that is helping children, teachers, parents, elderly people, adults, anybody that struggles with not only ADHD, but for tonight, our audience is mostly ADHD, so that is one of our clientele that we help with. And then we are also very proud to be part of a assessment that we developed almost 8-9 years ago, the Focus Assessment, part of the University of Port, the wellness arm. So this is an assessment where we can measure attentional control, so we can actually assess your child's attention span, how his impulsivity, how fast his brain can process information, and what the impact of visual and auditory distractions is. And best of all, it's totally subjective. Oh, goodness, listen to what I'm saying. What say I?
Objective.
I wanted to say, but best of all, it's not subjective, it's objective. Okay, so it's nobody's opinion. So yeah, that's a little bit about Karen and ourselves. So we are the pilots of the plane flying the ship in South Africa. Okay. All right. So if there's one sentence I want you to remember as we go through the presentation tonight, it's this. Think of your child. Is it that they can't, or is it that they can't yet? That yet. So think of it. Let it sink in. Can't the child, or won't the child? You know, think of it. Is it I won't, or I can't yet? Okay, just think of it as we go through the presentation tonight. I thought I will just, for some of the parents maybe on here that hasn't had a very big I'll just give a quick overview about ADHD, where it started from, the symptoms, the diagnosis, the medication, and such, before we go on to what's happening inside of the brain. So I'm not going to take a lot of time going through all of this, but I think the most funniest thing of this slide is that almost 120 years ago, there was a doctor, and his name was Dr. Still. I mean, what's the chance? Dr. Still was the one that first described bright children, but with a behavior problem. So that was the ADHD one. So 120 years ago, they thought that ADHD was a behavior problem. And I mean, luckily now, 120 years later, we know it's not a behavior problem, but don't we always just look at the behavior still? So we know it's not behavior, but we always, when we look at the child, it's always, but look at this behavior, look at this behavior, look at this behavior. And that's again why I want to bring you tonight to let you understand, but why are we seeing that? The behavior is the result of something happening inside of the child. So just a little bit about Dr. Still. I thought that was very funny. Dr. Still with the busy children. And then just quickly, lots of parents always ask me, but what does ADHD cause? Where did my child get it? So unfortunately, the number one is it's genetics, and it's mostly from the dad. So if the father's got ADHD, the chances of one of your kids or both of your kids getting ADHD is most probably is there. So it's very hereditable. Brain differences, we know ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. So if you look at at the physiology in the brain, it's the whole limbic system. It's not just one thing in the brain that's not working 100%. So it's not damage. Nothing is damaged. It's not brain damage. It's different. The brain is different wirely. It's different. Wired differently. And then there's also neurotransmitters. So it's the messengers in the brain. So there's differences in their activity. I'm going to show you later on when I talk about medication. So there's challenges there. And then also early life factors. So we know kids with premature birth, low birth weight, exposed to alcohol and all those things, they've got a bigger chance of developing ADHD. What does not cause ADHD? And when we are in parent groups and parents ask for support and say, but my child's struggling with this and this and this, and then the support, and I mean, we all want to help parents, but it will be like, cut out sugar, stop screen time, don't do that, don't do that. And it's not a cause. Does it play a role? Does it exacerbate, I think, the symptoms? Yes, it does, but it's not a cause of the ADHD. So things like sugar, screen time, laziness, all those things, poor sleep, it's not causes, but it makes it worse. So that's why we always say you can have everything in moderation, everything in moderation. All right. So this is the one I don't want to step on any toes because there's lots of disciplines in here, but I want to specifically bring this slide up because now remember, we've been working with families for the last 18 years. And sometimes when parents ask you something, they refer to one place only, and that's directly to one place only. And then it costs the children maybe lots of money for all the exams and tests and things, and waste of time before the child gets a proper diagnosis and actually gets help. So I just wanted to point out who can diagnose ADHD. So there on the left-hand side, so the neurodevelopmental pediatrician, the psychiatrist, the pediatrician, clinical psychologist, they can diagnose, but unfortunately, they can't prescribe medication, and then your general practitioners. So who can't diagnose? Teachers, we can't. We can't, as coaches, we can't. I, as a registered nurse, can make a not like a diagnosis, but I can say I suggest something like that, but I can't do a diagnosis. OTs, speech coaches, counselors, tutors, play therapists, We can't, but we form part of the whole holistic team. And often, because we work with these kids, we do see if we do see some of those behaviors and challenges that the child experience. And the reason is we see them in a different environment. So teachers, for example, see kids the whole day in the school. So that is a more controlled environment with different challenges that the child is experiencing there. So that is very valuable information is when a teacher tells you, listen, this is what I'm seeing, not diagnosing, but have a look at it and then go to the proper person to get a diagnosis. I'm just moving this around. Okay. So if we look at the diagnosis, we don't only look at the symptoms. So there's a whole lots of symptoms that these children display. There's lots of them. They are using subjective questionnaires that you need to fill in. There's different types of questionnaires that is subjective. So that is someone's opinion. But I want to point out that symptoms alone are not enough. These symptoms need to be present for at least 6 months or more, and some of those symptoms needed to be present actually before the age of 12 already. I can remember when I was diagnosed, I took my little book under my arm and I went to my doctor and I said to her, you know what, I suspect I've got adult ADHD. And then we went through and we were laughing because she's also my friend. And then we went back and we talked about how did I feel and what did I do in primary school. And then we started to identify lots of those things. So lots of those symptoms were already present before the age of 12. And then very important, it must be in 2 different areas. So it will be in school and it must be in home. So not in one setting. And then this is very important. It causes real difficulty in daily life. And that is very important because that's the difference between a child that's very energetic and a child that's got ADHD. Does it severely impact the child's daily life on certain aspects? So that's where we can basically now see, is it ADHD or just a very, very energetic child? And then there's another slide. I'm not going to go into much difference. I think most of you know this, but that's the 3 types of ADHD. These days, previously it was ADD and ADHD separately, but now everything is just called ADHD. But still, we can see them fit into certain aspects. So we've got our inattentive children. So those are the quiet ones, the dreamy ones, the forgetful ones. But lots of time, that's the girls. That's why we miss girls often in the earlier years, because they are very quiet. They want to be perfectionists. They want to impress the teacher. So they do everything. They work very hard at school to do everything perfect, and then they explode at home. But we only pick them up later. We've seen almost like grade 3, 4. We start to see more of the girls because they're not so necessarily so fidgety as the boys. And then we've got the hyperactive impulsive ones. So these ones are all on the go, go, go. And you say, Johnny, go and sit. And he goes and sit. And then he gets up immediately and go and do something again. So they're just like little jumping balls all over of the walls. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen a severely hyperactive child. It's some interesting thing to see. It's like daar's rooi mure in die gat. He cannot sit still. And then we get the combined one, which is most often that's the one we get mostly. Now, then I want to show you this one because we tend to forget this about our ADHD children. This is the passengers that they always take with them. So if we look at ADHD and we look at numbers, We know that 1 in 10 of children is usually diagnosed with ADHD. That statistics has been like that for many, many years, like 1 in 10, 2 in 10 kids. But there's a large-scale study, national survey that's been done that actually shows 8 out of 10 of those ADHD children at least have other conditions riding along. So I'm calling them the passengers. And when I prepared this presentation card and I said passengers, and I thought, oh my goodness, it sounds like they've got like aliens going with them. But it's not like that. But it's other comorbidities that goes with them. So if you as a parent has ever felt that your child's got more than ADHD going on, you're probably right. So you're in the norm. You're not the exception, because usually a parent's intuition is very spot on. Okay. So let's look at these. So who's passengers? So the first group is the emotional passengers. So this is the big feelings and the big reactions. So this is where we get, they say, about 4 out of 10 of these ADHD children, it's got behavior and oppositional problems. So 4 out of 10, that's a lot. So that's the ones, that's the arguing, the refusing. They say no to you even before you start to finish a sentence. And now you think, oh, you bloody, you naughty. Nee? They act out because they feel overwhelmed. And they act out because they feel overwhelmed and they feel rejected and incapable of meeting what's being asked. You'll understand later why they do feel like that. It's a real thing. It's a physiology. Physiology, my English is there, but it's a real thing in the brain why they struggle. Okay, so it's not that they are incapable or not, it's that they are incapable, they can't, they're not, and not that they are not willing to do it. Anxiety, lots of anxiety. We see it a lot with these kids. 4 out of 10 struggle with anxiety. And you know what's what we see a lot of the symptoms is headaches, stomach aches. In Afrikaans, they call it psychosomatische symptoms. I don't know in English. I don't know. Some things like that. But anyways, but it's mostly stomach aches. They don't want to go to school, and sometimes it's because they fear failure. And we see it like, oh, it's an attitude again. Look at you. Stop being naughty. It's an attitude. Come on. You don't have a headache, but it's the anxiety that they are experiencing. And the bad thing is that ADHD and anxiety feed each other. So I can't focus. So now I worry more and I'm more anxious. So the more I'm anxious and I worry, the less I can focus. So it's like a loop. It's a loop that's happening and they are stressed. And now, if we don't look at the anxiety and we don't address the anxiety, it develops into depression. And that is why we see kids, even today, 1 in 5 of them on young age being on antidepressants. So it's really sad if we think of it, today's kids so young, struggling with anxiety and depression, which is really a deep sadness and a feeling of hopelessness that they have. And then as they get older, there's other, and nothing is addressed. There's other mood conditions that can start to develop as they get older. Let me just go on to the next one, and that's the learning passenger. So that's the emotional one, and then the other one is the learning passenger. So this is the thinking, processing, and understanding ones. So this is learning disorders. I don't want to go into much detail. I'm cognizant of our time. But the learning disorders that we also see a lot, dyslexia, lots of dyslexia. 1 in 3, dyslexia. Dysgraphia, dyscalculia. And you know what? They struggle with this, and we see the inattention as the cause. The inattention is not the cause. The inattention is the result, because they struggle with that learning. You see how sometimes we can see things a little bit different. Then we've got autism. 14% of kids with ADHD also has autism. I can remember Henry, and it's still the same. You most probably kids are first going to be diagnosed with ADHD, and then later on the autism is being then added to that as well. Then language and social cues, around 35% struggle to read tone, body language, and humor. So that's also that they struggle with, and then they look rude to us or like they're ignoring us. They're sitting with their back to you, busy with something, and you're talking, and they are just being not aware of what you are saying. So lots of those social cues are not there. And then sleep. Sleep is a big, big, big one. If we can fix sleep, we're going to fix a lot of things. We see a lot of kids that doesn't have regular bedtime routines. They call it what, Gordon? It's a sleep hygiene. That's the very grand name is sleep hygiene. I'm just calling it having a healthy sleep routine for your child. Because if they don't sleep, they're going to be irritated the next morning. They're going to struggle with attention. They're going to have outbursts during the day. And what happens is they're so wind up, tonight they can't fall asleep again. So that's why getting a sleep routine is so important. So let's quickly look at medications. The medications that we have, I know there's another group of medication that has been approved by the FDA. I think it's in America now. It's a total new group, not in South Africa yet. But we've got two groups, stimulants and non-stimulants. So stimulants will be your Ritalins, Concerta, Medicanet. Guys, and all of them are exactly the same. Exactly the same. It's just different brand names. But the active ingredients are exactly the same. So that is the stimulants, and they work on, you remember I spoke about earlier when we talked about the causes, and we spoke about neurotransmitters. That's the dopamine and the noradrenaline. So these medications works on those. I'll show you now what it does. And then non-stimulants is I didn't put it in here, but that is your Strattera and Inners. That is the one. There might be a whole lot more. There's so many on the market these days. I don't know all of the names, but that's the ones that I know of. So how does it work? So if we go, and now we go into the brain, don't want to go into too much depth physiology. I'm going to explain it as easy as possible so that you can understand what medication does, because medication, we're not anti-medication, but medication is not the only answer, because medication is purely symptomatic. It's the same as I'm wearing my braille, my spectacle, I take it off, I can't see you. Now I'm struggling. Now I'm putting it up. Now I can see you. But the moment I take it off, I can't see you again. So I need it to put it on. So it's purely symptomatic. And that's where we, at the end, you're going to see there's a light at the end of the tunnel, because we've got a wonderful brain that can actually rewires itself so that we don't necessarily going to need the spectacles or things like that, maybe forever and ever. It depends on. I'm not a medical doctor. This is just to give you an overview. But in the brain, we've got lots and lots and billions and billions and billions of neurons. They look not like this. This is just this image to explain to you. And then on there, you call that a synapse. You'll call it like that. And the one is the sending synapse, and the one is the receiving one. It's good. They've give them different names. So presynaptic, postsynaptic, but it's basically one sends, the one receive. So then there's lots of neurotransmitter vesicles, guys, and there's not only those two neurotransmitters, there's millions and millions of neurotransmitters doing different things in the brain. But for us, for ADHD, we want to look at these two because they play a role in attention, memory, working memory, motivation, impulse control, and all of those things. So what happens is in the brain, on this side, the neurotransmitters, those two, they are released. This is called a synaptic cleft. So it's like space between the two. So here it comes out, but also on this side is like little vacuum cleaners, sitting there. So it comes out, but there's vacuum cleaners. And then this one that should receive the medications, on there is like little receptors. So it's like little, how can I say, connection points, if I can put it like that. And what happens is these neurotransmitters is being released, um, and it's sending messages. So it goes out and it's like from there to there, and it's like here's the message, pass it on. But now what happens with in ADHD, and if we look at this, there's little vacuums there, and then there's little synapses there, and then we've got our dopamine, they are drifting there. But now they can't connect to this receptors fast enough, and now there's also vacuums. So what does medication do? Medication blocks those dopamine and noradrenaline from being sucked back into the sending one, so that they at the end of the day can be connected to the receiving one, and then that the message is passed on. So that is what medication on a basic level does. It just blocks. That's why it's called a reuptake inhibitors. Block that so that the message goes on. Symptomatic, okay? But don't want to sound like we are negative for medication. It really is wonderful if it's for the correct child. So correct diagnosis, correct dosage, and it does take time to get the correct dosage. We'll hear about, oh, my child was a zombie, zoned out. Then the medication was too strong. Unfortunately, with ADHD, with all the other passengers that I spoke about and the challenges, yeah, sometimes they're going to have to try out a few medications and get to the correct dose to really help the child. It does not cause addiction, guys. So many people ask, but oh, it's they're going to be get addiction. No, they do not. There's no science of at that. There's actually science showing if they are not helped earlier because of remember the challenges, the disruption, the opposition, the defiance they've got. If we don't help them, that they actually can become more of getting, in that sort of risky types of behavior. But I don't want to go into that. So that is just quickly about medication. So ADHD is a performance problem. It's not a knowing problem. Okay, so your child, if you ask them, if they've got siblings, your child actually will know what to do. So if you ask them, can you recite the morning routine back to you perfectly? So if you ask them, okay, but Johan, what do you do in the morning? What do I tell you? No, I have to brush my teeth and put on my clothes and get my bag and let's go. But do they do it? No. It's like a constant. Go and brush your teeth like 10 times. Go and do it. And then they don't even go and do it. So they know what to do. It's just that they don't do it when they are supposed to do it. So when it matters. And that's the difference with them. They know what to do, but they don't do it when they must do it. And then remember what I said. Is it I won't do it? Or is it I won't? Or is it I can't yet? It's a I can't yet. And you'll see why. So I can't yet. So yes, why the I can't yet. So this is a little bit more into the brain, the physiology of the brain. I'm going to keep it very, very simple to explain it to you. So I've created characters so that it makes sense. So in the brain, if we look at focus, it's not a willpower. Okay, it's three things that works together. Okay. So the first one is the RAS. We call it the reticular activation system. Okay. So this is a filter. And this filter, I want you to think of it as it's like a superhero shield. Okay. So think of a superhero and think of that Superman shield. Think of it like think of it like that. And before I go on, sorry, all three of them, they work together so that it's not one thing, one thing, one thing. All of these three systems, they work together. Okay, so the RAS is the filter, the prefrontal cortex, that's the coach, okay, or the boss, okay, and beta brainwaves, that's the energy bar, that's the tension. And if any one of them is not working smoothly, okay, your child is going to struggle, okay, and they're going to struggle to concentrate. All right, so let's look at the superhero, the RAS, okay. So this one, the RAS, there's the shield, okay. Imagine it, it sits there in the brainstem, and its whole job, okay, what the job of the reticular activation system is it activates, the brain is being activated, and then it filters out, I call it noise. So it's think of what is important, what must come in, and what is not important, what must stay out. So in classroom, what is important is being able to listen to the teacher, that must come in. What must go out? Thinking of the party on Saturday, that must not be out. So the brain, the RAS is got the ability to filter out, I call it like the noise. So the important stuff out, important stuff in, unimportant stuff filters out. Okay. But that the system there is being triggered by three things. So the first one is novelty, something that's new and it's brand new and it's like, oh, I want to learn about this today. Oh, I'm walking into the class, the teacher says, oh guys, today we're going to learn about photosynthesis, and you like first time ever hearing this, and it sounds very exciting, and then the teacher starts going on and it's like, oh my gosh, it's boring. Okay, so it's not interesting for me. Okay, so novelty, things like that, relevance, it's important for them. They love it. They're very interested in that. Then loud noises, bright lights, urgent, emotional. That's why TV games, I mean, it's bright lights, colors, levels, different characters, it keeps them engaged for hours. So the RAS is activated, but by that. And I mean, that's not happening in class. But now in ADHD, that shield is weaker. That's a fact. So that shield doesn't work as it should. All right. So it does not necessarily can filter out what's important and what is not important. So everything comes in at once. Okay, so everything. So the noise of a fan, the siblings in the next room playing and screaming and yelling, itching of a label on a clothes room, thinking, like I said, random thoughts about a party or something about your dog. It's everything comes in. And then we think of that, they should have done something, and we say, oh, Johan, why can't you just stop? Okay? It's because the shield is not working. Everything comes in at once. Okay? Filter is down. So remember the filter. Then we've got the coach. Okay, there's a coach or the boss of the brain. This one sits just behind the forehead. There's actually different parts. I'm going to go into detail. But the prefrontal cortex, so that's the coach, okay? There it says, it tells you what to do next. Hold on to the steps, plan, decides, applies, and applies self-control. Okay, so example, let me give you an example in school. Okay, so the teacher gives a three-part instruction, and she says to the class, write your name at the top of the page, do question 3, and then bring it to my desk. Your child write their name and then they stop. And what is the teacher saying? The teacher says, oh, you know what, Lilian, you didn't listen. You didn't listen to me. But what actually happened in the brain? The coach, the prefrontal cortex, the coach dropped the ball because he can't remember what happens after step 1. It was just write my name, and then the coach dropped the ball, and now I can't remember what's the third thing. We call it like multiple step directions. They can't remember everything at once, and then they forget. And it looks for us like they are naughty, they're not listening, and they're not concentrating. But the coach dropped the ball. So how does it look when they do homework? So picture your child sitting in front of the homework with the worksheet in front of them, and then nothing. Nothing happened. So now they are fiddling with the pencil. Suddenly they are thirsty. You know that one. Get up and go and get some food and water. Now they play with the dog. I'll do it now, all those things. And then 20 minutes is gone. And they haven't done anything. And now you are thinking, but what have you done the whole 20 minutes? You are busy, but you've done nothing. Okay? So what's really going on in your child's brain? Remember now the coach has dropped the ball. So if we think of the steps, your child was thinking, here's a blank page. Where do I start? What must I write first? What if it's wrong? Is this enough? And none of those questions has been answered yet. So now the brain stalls because he doesn't know where to start. And we see it and we look and we think, you're avoiding. You're avoiding. Why don't you just start? Stop avoiding. You need to do it. And we say and we think, he's not even trying. But nobody's telling where to start. So we need to break it down. The coach, always remember the coach drops the ball, the steps. So try and remember it like that. All right. What's the last one? The last one is the energy bar. All right. So beta brainwaves is our brainwaves that is fast, and they're very fast and when we are alert, where we are in an attentive state. So for those of you that are listening to me and not sleeping, your beta brainwaves are now very fast and alert. Right. So what happens with these children? Okay. Remember now, beta brainwaves, like I say, they are linked to alertness and concentration and active thinking. Okay. So think of it like it's an energy bar. So when the bar is full, the child pays attention. When it's not full, they're going to struggle to pay attention. Okay. So how does all of these three things work together? So we've got the superhero shield, which is the RAS, okay, filter out it's been activated by novelty and interesting and all those things. And it is then filter out what comes in, what's not important stays out. Then we've got the energy bar that is being engaged when the brain is put into action. The energy bar is then also is put into attention, and then it creates like a loop, if I can explain it like that. So the two feeds off each other, and then we've got also the coach also playing a role, helping the child, to do all of the other executive functioning tasks. So let's just put it together, and I've write a little explanation to show you. In the beginning I said, but why Minecraft and why not homework if we look at the three systems happening in the brain? All right, so this is how it should work. So when doing a task, the RAS, so the superhero shield, is activated, and it only lets in the important stuff. The beta brainwaves, the energy bar, that one, it keeps the RAS engaged, so it forms like a loop the whole time. And then the coach, the prefrontal cortex, tells you what to do next. Hold on to the step, make plans and decisions, and it's a whole lot of other stuff that functions that the prefrontal cortex does. Now in ADHD, that superhero shield is weaker. Remember, we spoke about it. It's physiologic. It's like that. It's weaker. So everything comes in at once. The energy bar is unstable. And the coach is off duty. So can you now see what is happening with our ADHD children? all three of those systems that plays a crucial role for your child to be able to sit in class, pay attention, do homework, do all sort of stuff. All those systems are not functioning properly. Okay. So what else do we see? Before we move on, I want to just show you what else do we see. What is other, and say, character flaws, because remember we tend to just point out all of the negative behaviors, and remember what we said earlier, it's not behaviors, but that's what we focus on. So look at the left-hand column. What do you see at home? Okay, so what we see, okay, Johan forgets his instructions, he loses his temper, he acts without thinking, and he can't switch off his phone when you tell him to switch off his phone. Now, every single one of those is behaviors we see in ADHD. Okay. But what's important now, if we look on the right side, the fact is that every single one of them is actually cognitive and executive functioning skills in the brain. And these skills, children are not born with them. That's the thing. We just assume they must have all of these things to be able to not forget, not lose their temper, to think before they act, to switch between tasks. These are cognitive and executive functioning skills, and we must develop them. All right. So, forgetting instructions is working memory. Losing their temper is emotional regulation. To act without thinking is impulse control. Can't switch off the phone. They can't switch from task. They can't leave their phone and start doing their homework. They struggle with that. All of them cognitive and executive functioning skills. Here's a few other ones that we also see. Time blindness. Oh my goodness, there's time till kingdom come. Lots of time to do anything. But they live entirely in the right now, and they don't know how long anything really takes. All right, that's really true. I'm going to show you an example of got an image for a clock that you can buy on Temu just to make it more visual. Remember, we must be visual with these kids. But time blindness, difficulty starting a task, and notice that word starting. They can't start the task. Okay, even when they want to do it. Remember why? The RAS is not activated because it's boring. It's not interesting for them to do it. If it's a game, I'll do it now, but if it's homework, it's boring. The RAS is not activated. Okay. So for us, it looks like laziness, but it's actually the brain struggles to kick in. Okay. And then we got the total opposite, hyperfocus. Oh, I'm very good at that. I can hyperfocus. When I say vreeslik, well, vreeslik is the Afrikaans, but I can hyperfocus vreeslik, and then just don't take me out of that zone that I'm in. So then I struggle also with shifting from one thing to another. I see Karen laugh. She knows that's me. Okay. And then working memory gaps. Okay. Forgetting steps, instructions. Where did I put things? There's maybe one of these people here, older people. Problems for you. No, I'm just joking. Okay. It happens with most of us. Where did I put my key? Where's my cell phone? And then I'm on my cell phone looking for my cell phone. I mean, it's ridiculous, the things that we do. And then rejection sensitivity. They take criticism, guys, very personal. And a small comment can be really hurtful for them. And then also, as much energy as that they can have, they can also have brain fog. Karen's got brain fog. I'm seeing if she's concentrating to what I'm saying. But I mean, buzzing the one moment and then flat the next moment. So okay, so now we have talked about all this depressing stuff, and it sounds like, oh my gosh, what now? Is there any help for my child? Is there solutions? Yes, that's the good news. The wonderful news is that the brain is neuroplastic. So this is called neuroplasticity. So there is hope. And it's amazing. So the brain can actually rewire itself through experience and practicing new skills. Think if I would just want to put it in context, maybe for uh, not on school level, but think of when you were in somebody was in an accident and they couldn't walk. Okay. So they went to rehabilitation and they did exercises. So that new neurological pathways and nerves were being treated and getting better, and then they can walk again. That's the amazing thing of neuroplasticity. The brain can actually rewires himself. But how does it work? So every time we repeat a thought or an action, we exercise a pathway, and that pathway gets stronger and faster, just like a muscle. So repetition, the more practice it, something else happens. I don't want to go into much detail, but just there's a fatty coating around the nerves. It's called myelin, and then it actually insulates it insulates that nerve so that the messages can get through much faster. Don't want to go into that too detail. And then repetition, because I'm going to transition now to what you can do, the three strategies that I'm going to give you that you can do. Repetition, when we tell kids things all the time, it's not nagging. Okay? It might feel for you like, but I'm nagging the child or over and over and over. It's construction. When I do study method courses, I always tell the parents certain things that they must do when they drop off the kids in the morning at school, things that they must do. Repeat, 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 because they're going to get stuck. We're forming that pathways, and then the habit is going to be there. So it's constructive. So when your child then practices a routine or a calming strategy or a piece of self-talk, you are not reminding them. Ne? You are physically, this is now what we're going to do, we are physically going to rebuild the the circuits that control focus and behaviors. But for the brain to learn this, guys, now this is important, we need three things. We need to repeat, we need to be consistent, and we need to give the brain time. All right. Sorry, let me just get a little bit of water. So, from tonight, anytime when you engage with your child, it's going to take effort from you because it's not, like I say, it's not easy. If it's easy, we can tell a child once and then everything will be sunshine and happiness. But unfortunately, it's not, but it can change. But we need to be consistent. So when from now on, I want you to think, when you ask your child something or you see they struggle, ask yourself, won't he or she or can't he or she yet? All right, that yet is the important thing. Okay. We don't, there I've put it in. With ADHD, it's overwhelming can't. And you don't punish can't, you support can't. So we need to help them. So here's the three strategies that I want to give you that you can start trying from now on. And remember, oh, I like repeating. You can see there I go again. Repeating, consistency, and giving time. So you can't do it tonight and say tomorrow it's not working. You're going to say it tonight, and most probably tonight it's not going to work. But you're going to say it again. Calmness. You need to calm. Before you correct. So it was activated. So one you go to your child and you kneel in front of them, that close face to face encounter
Marlies? Oh, okay. We lost her. Okay, guys. So just bear with us. She'll come back. That's now an internet thing. So, okay, while we're waiting for Marlies, can we quickly see in the chat? Are you guys learning something? Let's quickly see, because we had a little bit of a chat here up. It was very nice. See, we can everyone relate. Okay, let's quickly see. Okay, great. Oh, yeah, you're back. You are muted. You are muted.
Was I gone?
Unmute yourself. There you go. So just do your screen sharing thingy again. Okay,
Oh, sorry.
everyone.
Was it
Everyone.
me? Was it me that left?
Yeah, you left.
Oh, sorry. I think it was
Okay.
my
Yeah. It's your internet. Yeah. Internet is very spotty now. Okay, well, let's just share your second screen.
Sorry.
I think it's the wind. The wind is quite blowing here. Maybe it's that.
Okay, we're almost finished. Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. Okay, hopefully,
Okay.
fingers crossed,
Okay.
fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
you got it. Yes.
Okay. Can't see if I'm recording now.
Let me see.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
it's recording.
It's recording,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, sorry, let me go back. Sorry, guys. Okay, so the connect before you correct. All right, so just going in. So I was talking about close, not like this, but I'm just mean face to face. Okay, that is relevant. So you're not nice to your child. You want to be not standing at the back screaming there to do something. You want to be in there in front of them, but you also want to put your hand on their shoulder to get them engaged with you. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to basically give a connection before you correct. So what does it basically mean is, say, for instance, you are telling them they must go to bath. Okay, so it's bath time. So you will not go and sit next to it and say, Johan, it's bath time, go and bath. No, not going to work. It's going to be a fight. So that connection is going in front. Look at what Johan is busy now. Maybe he's building a Lego block. Oh, it's a very nice tower that you are building here. I remember in 10 minutes it's bath time. Okay. I just want to show you here. I'll show you on the next screen the clock how it looks. Okay. So that is the connect. So we need to connect before we correct. And we need to give them time. Time for when things happen. And that's why you're going to use the clock, because remember now they are time blind. Okay. And it's not always going to be like one connection, and then suddenly they're going to do exactly what you say. That connection, you must see that as basically like a conversation or an interaction with your child, and then telling them what you need them to do. You can even give them a choice. Okay, so I love the Lego that you are we're gonna do you want to go and bath first, or then or pack your bag? I'm saying for you. So you need to connect before you can correct them and tell them what to do. You just want to see if I don't leave out anything. Okay. So give the correction now. Go and do that talk, how we talk with children. Now, Gordon, the last call
Maar
We have parent strategies for children with ADHD. So there we're going to go show you how it works, but also if it doesn't work and there's blow-ups, how to repair it, and how to help you how to help you navigate through all of those different scenarios, because these ones might work for a while and then they're not going to work anymore, but we will be able to tell you why it's going to happen and then also what to do after that. Then the last, the second part of the head, or take the job away. Working memories where we tell them go.
Marlies, Sissy,
So we're not gonna fix that. Hello. Yes.
jy lag verskriklik. Ons kan
Hello?
glad nie hoor nie. Ek weet, jy lag vreeslik. Jy kan niks hoor nie. Dit is net so woordjies. Weet nie hoekom is jou internet nou nie. Miskien moet jy jou kamera afsit. Sit dalk jou kamera af. Dan kyk ons.
Okay.
So hulle kon jou nie eens hoor van die
Wi-Fi is full.
Ja, ek weet nie. Want almal is sê in die chat. Hulle kon nie hoor, want hulle kon byvoorbeeld nie hoor die bootcamp gedeelte was heeltemal uitgesny.
Jy wil nie dalk net dan vir hulle dit lees nie. Lees my notes.
Okay, maar ek kan nie jou notes sien nie.
Do you guys mind if
Okay, yeah, maybe everyone should put off their cameras. That's a suggestion. Maybe we should put off our cameras and see if that helps. Okay, but sit them off, Sissy. Okay, let's try.
Okay.
Okay, there's it. Okay, let's go on.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Strategy 2. How do I sound? Is it?
Yeah, better.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. So strategy 2. Okay. So strategy 2 is take the job away. Okay. So this is the working memory. Remember I spoke about, so we give them, think of it. Go to my room, get a tissue on your way back to the kitchen, bring me a glass of water, and then they go all the way there. And they get to your room and don't even know what they should bring back. All right, so that's the working memory region. Okay, so what are we going to do? So we're not going to try and fix that region tonight, but around that region, because remember, that's one of the areas that the brain is struggling with, is the working memory, which is the executive functioning skill. So we're taking the job away, okay? So in working memory, in the ADHD, I always want to explain it, it's like a leaky bucket, okay? So every multiple step verbal instruction, we pour it into that bucket, and then it goes straight through the holes, okay? So most of the instructions is gone before, it's even reached the child, so that the child knows what to do. So so what we're going to do is we're going to do it like in 2 parts. One instruction at a time. So it's not going to be go and brush your teeth, get dressed, and bring your bag down. It's going to be one. So again, this is going to take this, but I promise you it's going to get better, and you're going to see less frustration actually. And the teachers, you can do this the same in the class, break it down, less frustration. So 1, wait for completion, and then the next one. Okay, so it will be go and brush your teeth. Okay, now they go and brush your teeth. Okay, finished. Go now and get dressed. Okay, get dressed. All right, perfect. Now bring your bag down. Okay, so we've broken it up, make time visible. So that's the little clock I got on Temu. And what I like about it is a child can see with the colors, especially if they are young, in blocks, like it's 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Because if we tell them 5 minutes, they can see, okay, as the arms of the clock moves down, my time is running out. So they can see that it becomes more real, concrete for them. Okay, they can see. So if it's 10 minutes, now they can see it's these 2 blocks. My time is running out, or we are going to leave the house in 10 minutes, so they can see. So this is a very, I think, and it's like $200. It's not even a lot, but I would use something like that. I will not use something like a telephone because it's very distracted. I will not use something like that little things with the sand, because then they can't estimate how many minutes is left. So this is a great one. Okay, so make it visible, because the 5 minutes that we tell them, for them it's just an idea. They don't have a cooking clue how long it is. All right, so that's the one that you can have, and that's also in our boot camp. We're going to build a morning and a homework system around time. Okay, customize for your child, and then we're going to troubleshoot it for when it stops working and why, and then also how to fix it. Because lots of the things that we do with kids, we try it, and then also at some point we need to adjust how we do some of the strategies with them. And then this last one is warn the transition. Okay, so it's remember we also spoke about switching tasks when we tell them they're on their phone, and now we say, put on your phone and start doing your homework. That shift, okay, which is an executive functioning skill. They can't do that. So we need to also help them by giving them the instructions better. Okay, because remember, if they are on their phone, for example, their brain is now locked on that phone. Okay, and to try and get them out of that is like try and wake somebody up from a very deep sleep. All right, and then it's gonna end into a fight, because they can't do that switch. Okay, so how are we going to do it? So we're gonna give them warnings, not warning like I warn you. It's like notices. Okay, so we're gonna say 10 minutes, and then we're leaving. Say, for instance, you're going to the shop. They're busy on their phone or their game or whatever they do, and then you go to them. Remember, on their eye level, touch their shoulders, connection. Okay, remember the connection point that you have to do with them. Oh, I see you enjoy your game. Remember, in 10 minutes, we're going to leave for the shop. Okay, now you can ask them, what do you want to finish before then? Okay, so they see their 10 minutes, but now we also give them a choice. So it's not like we're going to leave in 10. They don't know how long is 10 minutes, and they're busy on their one. They're fixated on their one. We actually now connected with them. We've given them a warning of time, and we've also given them a choice of what they want to finish before before you leave the home. And then just before you go, then it's this transition itself. Okay, so when you go to them again, it's like, hello, Johan. Okay, it's we're gonna leave now. It's not put off your phone. We're leaving now. Is now is Johan? Okay, our 10 minutes is past. We're gonna leave now, and then connection. What do you want? You can pick the music in the car. So we have a connection again. So we try and move away from correcting them the whole time, because remember, all that these children hear all the time is they're not doing good enough, that you can do better. We are angry with them, and we want to correct them the whole time. So we need to change a little bit about how we talk to them and how we engage with them. Okay, so if we also look at this transition here, it's part of emotional regulation. All right. So that they can know how to regulate their emotions. And also in our boot camp, we're going to teach and show you what you can do mid-meltdown. Okay. The co-regulation scripts and how to stop the fuse burning down at the same time. Okay, because you're gonna also get tired. Parents get tired because you correct your child and 100 times a day. I can remember Karen always said to me, she must tell the younger ones, Indra, go and brush your teeth, go and brush your teeth. Did you brush your teeth? No, you haven't. Go and brush your teeth. Okay, so you as a parent do get frustrated and you do get tired. And what's most important is that a parent that is dysregulated and tired and burned out can't regulate a dysregulated child. Okay, so what is the answer? And this is where we come in. It goes two ways. So the one way is what you can do at home. Okay, so it's two legs. It's the systems that you as a parent can put in place at home and systems that can be placed in school. And then there's also the other systems that we need to look on, the brain itself. And that is what we do at our centers. So you will remember I spoke about when we talked about all of the challenges that these kids have. If I go back to this screen here, let me just quickly go back to this one. I just want to bring it up for you. This one, yeah. For example, forgets instructions, where we know it's working memory, loses temper, emotional regulation, acts without thinking, impulse control, can't switch off phone, task shifting. So that's all the cognitive and executive functioning skills on brain level that we need to also look at. And that is what we do at BioLink. So we have it two levels. So we have the boot camp to help you as a parent with the strategies and at home and how to work with your child. But then we also have the brain level one where we need to work on the brain level. And remember, I said to you, these skills, they're not born with it. But the greatest news is that it can be developed because of neuroplasticity. That is what we do at our centers. So this is our invitation for you tonight. Is in quarter 4 we'll be launching our first 4-week boot camp. So it's going to be our beta group, and it's going to be a very special price, and it's going to be videos that you go through, and then there's also going to be twice a week live Zoom meetings where you can ask questions and we discuss certain challenges. So if you've got a challenge with your child, everybody goes on and then we discuss and give you solutions and things what to do. So that will be in quarter 4, and we're going to have a wait list for that. So we will send all the outline of the course for you there. But also with that, for the people that enroll, we're going to give you a focus assessment voucher. So with that voucher, the value is 750 Rand. So with that voucher, you can also go to one of our centers in South Africa. Like I said, we've got 43 centers across South Africa where you can go and assess your child. We will look at the attention span of your child compared to the same age. So if your daughter is 10 years old, we can look at your daughter compared to 10-year-old girls. Attention span, how fast does your child process information? Because if they process information slow, there's other challenges and everything, impulsivity, and then how does your child filter distractions, visual and auditory distractions, and all of those building blocks forms part of the cognitive skills that your child needs. So that's a wonderful tool, even if you don't want to do the boot camp. You can just go onto our website. We'll send tomorrow on the link, we'll send you the website, and you could just contact one of our agents and then book a focus assessment, and then they can also show you the program and what we do. All right, so any questions? I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've learned a few things tonight and saw that it's not behavior, it's actually what happens inside of the brain.
My question is just where can we find this recording?
We will be sending out the recording to everybody who attended tonight. So just look out tomorrow afternoon. By tomorrow afternoon, you will get the recording.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, I've got a question. Where is the boot camp again and how much is it? Tell me what?
We will send out, it's going to be in Q4, and we will send out the information via email for you with an outline of the boot camp, all the topics that we're going to address, the outline. And yeah, so we'll let you know within this week still. So what I can do, I think this is what we maybe must do for the people that's interested in the boot camp, so that I don't flood everybody's emails with everything. So for the people that's interested in the boot camp, maybe in the chat just type in boot camp. So we will
email their email, because otherwise we have to go look for the email. So it's going to be faster. Okay.
Well, bootcamp or your email address, and then I will email you the outline and all the information of the bootcamp. So maybe in the chat.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hello, can ek nog 'n vraag vra? Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I actually have more than one. So the one thing I was thinking, because I have two boys, and now I'm thinking both of them have this. I'm the one that has the ADHD. What is also in my mind is that their brains are still developing. They are small. They're 4 and 6 years old. So isn't a lot of what we see here, isn't it just a little kid's brain that's still developing into what it is going to become still? Isn't it just brain immaturity?
Well, yes and no, because the brain actually is going to develop till about 26. Your brain is going to develop till 26. But if we look at, I mean, for your child that's 4, you might see things like that, but I think it's very, very young to maybe point out certain challenges like that. As the brain develops, and your child is blootgestel. Sorry, Afrikaans word blootgestel aan sekere exposed, thank you. Exposed to certain things, the skills will develop. But with ADHD, it's a neurodevelopmental thing. It's a physiological thing. So if you think of the neurotransmitters, there is a problem with that. The whole limbic system. So that is not something that's gonna maybe just outgrow if we do nothing about them. So with other kids, if we give them expose them to certain things if they are younger. So with your child, if you can expose them to lots of, kids need to play outside in the trees. Do the things that we did when we were children. Do that. It definitely can help improve. The other thing is, remember, what's expected of kids today is much more difficult than when we were. So the brain is not keeping up with what it's supposed to do. So that's why we need to look at what we can do to further support our kids. But if we look at ADHD, because it's neurodevelopmental and it's a it's really the brain that's dysregulated and it's wired differently. They're not gonna outgrow it if it's 100% ADHD.
And then, sorry, another one that also crossed my mind is if you look at it, what is then the difference? I obviously know that you aren't medical professionals to diagnose, but you've seen these things, you work with it every day. Anxiety versus ADHD or ADD in a child, or even an adult as well. Don't they go very close together?
They go very close together. So what are you asking specifically, Marizette?
So like many of the signs and symptoms, for instance, the one that you mentioned, the headaches and the tummy aches,
Yes.
was that just another one attached to ADHD or ADD?
Attached to, yeah. So remember, there's lots of ADHD. Most often, 78% of kids with ADHD has some or other comorbidity along with it. And anxiety is really one that we see a lot. And then because the anxiety is not necessarily treated, it goes into depression.
Yeah.
But we see a lots goes together. So that's why it's not always only ADHD on its own. It's all those comorbidities, the passengers, like I call them, that goes along. Yeah.
Exactly. And sorry, I'm now hogging it, but the very last question, I promise, is a traumatic brain injury. If
Yes.
there were no signs and symptoms ever that you had ADHD and then traumatic brain injury comes, and what then?
Okay, so yeah, well, it's going to depend on how severe the TBI is. Say, for instance, the two is separate because they will not get a TBI from ADHD, so there must have been some other head trauma.
Head trauma.
Yeah.
Head trauma.
Yeah, so head trauma. So mostly with head trauma, it's going to depend on what type of injuries there was on the brain and which systems was affected. Are you asking specifically for like memory problems?
No, for the whole, how can I put a manifestation of ADHD, most of the signs and symptoms. Specifically the ones that I looked, the ones that were more applicable to ADHD than ADD. The spontaneity and the memory and what was the other thing?
So are your questions specifically the person has got TBI, had a TBI, but the symptoms now looks like ADHD? Is that what you are?
Yeah, because that was where you guys mentioned it can only be, if it is ADHD, it had to happen by age 12 years. But what if it was, if there wasn't any signs of that, and then after years afterwards, traumatic brain injuries, and then could traumatic brain injury be linked to ADHD?
No, the two things is totally different. It's totally, I mean, the TBIs is because of a head trauma. And then with regards to, so that's head trauma. So it's two different type of things. It's not, they're not related to each other. I'm not a medical doctor, but that's what I would think. The two is not related to each other. And then remember when I said the symptoms alone doesn't play, the symptoms alone, we don't look only at the symptoms. It's like if you look at the DSM-5, the criteria says that some of those, not all of the symptoms, should have been present before the age of 12.
Oh, okay.
Some of them, not all of them. Yeah, that's the criteria. If they look at diagnosis, yes.
Yes. Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
I hope I've answered some of your questions. If it's not, just let me know because I can find out.
Now, everyone is just complimenting you on everything they've learned. We've got a lot of people wanting more information on the boot camp. So it was all good. And I think you did a great job, Marlies.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Karen, did you hear? We work with all ages. We have a lot of students going to university that struggle because of poor.
Yeah. It was one of the people that says she's got a 17 and a 19-year-old. So I said, no, because we work with a lot of students and some of them really start struggling even more at university. So it's never too late.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's never too late. It's never too late. So like I said, in our business, we work with a lot of ADHD children, but also with adults. Because even adults in the working environment still struggle because you don't necessarily outgrow ADHD. You simply put systems as an adult in place to help you cope. Like I'm very aware I hyper-focused, but I know I can't just hyper focus on doing something, and when somebody else asks me to do something, tell them, leave me alone, I can't do it. I know I've put systems in place to be able to shift, and also make lists and tick lists and stuff like that. So as an adult, you basically you still have the challenges. It looks a little bit different, but you start to put systems in place that makes you go.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so we are very happy. If there's no other questions, thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you've learned something. Sorry about the internet connection. I'm not sure why it dropped, but never a dull moment in sunny South Africa. All right. Okay, everyone.
Okay, guys.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.